We begin meditation together by taking 3 deep breaths. And on an exhale, allow your whole body to relax. And on your next exhale, allow the concerns of the day and the world drop away. We are relaxed. The mind is clear. And on your next exhale, follow it all the way down into your heart space. From the deepest part of yourself, let love bloom. Let the nurturing love of God spill into and overflow your heart. Feel today you are beloved by God. Let that love encompass you and penetrate into any wounded place. Let love be a healing force within you right now. I invite you to take this divine healing love with you into the world to guide your speech and your decisions today and every day. And so it is. Amen.
Especially want to honor our fathers. I want to honor the memory of my father, Baxter Wright Quinton, who passed away in 1999. And want to honor my son, Justin Wright Quinton, whom I love so dearly. And I want to ask if you're a father or a father figure, you've served in that capacity. Maybe you didn't have children of your own, but you certainly were a father to someone. Would you stand? Let's just honor all of us dads right now. Stand up with me, dads. Look at them. We're amazing people, we fathers. We never take vacations from being fathers. Thank you all. Appreciate you so much. One Sunday morning, an old cowboy entered a church just before services were to begin. Although the old man and his clothes were spotlessly clean, he wore jeans, a denim shirt, and boots that were very worn and ragged. In his hand, he carried a worn-out old hat and an equally worn-out Bible. He was really a real cowboy. I'm more of a dude. The church he entered was in a very upscale and exclusive part of the city. It was the largest and most beautiful church the old cowboy had ever seen. The people of the congregation were all dressed with expensive clothes and accessories. As the cowboy took a seat, the others moved away from him. No one greeted, spoke to, or welcomed him. They were all appalled at his appearance and did not attempt to hide it. The minister gave a long sermon about hellfire and brimstone and a stern lecture on how much money the church needed to do God's work. As the old cowboy was leaving the church, the minister approached him and asked him to do him a favor. Before you come back in here again, have a talk with God and ask him what he thinks would be appropriate attire for worship. The old cowboy assured him that he would. The next Sunday, he showed up for services wearing the same ragged jeans, shirt, boots, and hat. Once again, he was completely shunned and ignored. The minister approached the man and said, "I thought I asked you to speak to God before you came back to our church." "I did, Reverend," replied the old cowboy. "Well, if you spoke to God, what did he tell you the proper attire should be for worshiping here?" asked the minister. "Well, Reverend, God told me he didn't have a clue what I should wear here. Said he's never been here before." No doubt. I want to talk to you this morning about father, home, and cowboy wisdom. And I'll be frequently throughout the message inserting some wisdom of the Old West, wisdom of the cowboys. But let's begin by looking at the principle of the father. From the revealing word from Unity founder Charles Fillmore, he defined father principle being the exact and immutable principle of being, a lying back of all existence as cause, and approachable only along the lines of perfect law. Some speak of, God as person or God as principle. And this is looking at God, the principle of God, that is the principle of being, that which is the cause of all existence and the ground of all being. This can be referred to also as the Father, this principle. There's a very well-known and popular Western series. Many of you may have watched it along with me. It's Yellowstone. Very popular. It's resulted in a number of spin-offs, hadn't it? The series, ended a year or two ago, but it spawned some short-term series like 1883, 1927. Now you've got Marshall's, and most recently the Dutton Ranch. And very popular series, and I'm a big fan myself. And the principle of the premise, of this series is looks at the Dutton family, headed by the patriarch, the father, John Dutton. The family owns the largest ranch in the United States, located in Montana. It has been in their family since 1883 and was settled through many enormous and frequently violent struggles. It is under various attacks by greedy developers and a hostile local militia. Not only were the attacks by outsiders of the Dutton family, but attacks, internal strife within, particularly between John's daughter Beth and his adopted son Jamie. So there's all kinds of struggles outside, struggles inside, to maintain this family and its legacy and its ranch. And John Dutton is determined to keep his family's ranch intact and pass it on to future generations, in spite of all the opposition he faces. So there's lots of stuff in Yellowstone if you're a fan of the Western genre, even though it's set in our modern day. There's the adventure of the West. Something about the West just denotes adventure, doesn't it? I know it did for me moving here. This is an adventure, man. I'm way further west than I've ever been in my life. And I remember a series on Netflix, you might have seen or heard of it, called Wyatt Earp and the Cowboy War. That was when Arizona was not a state, it was still a territory. And there was a lot of lawlessness and a lot of, chaos in the Arizona territory. How many have ever been to Tombstone? Oh, wow, I got to go. I must make a pilgrimage there. But, of course, that was the focal point of the lawlessness in the Arizona territory. And it turns out I was fascinated to hear about the Cowboy War, because cowboy had an extremely negative connotation at that time in the Arizona territory. Cowboy meant essentially a gang, like a street gang today. of just a gang of criminals. They called them the Cowboys. And they were mean and nasty, and they robbed, and they stole, and they shot and hurt people. And Ike Clanton had hired Wyatt Earp and his brothers to clean out the Cowboys. But it didn't work out so well, because not only did they not get rid of the Cowboys, but they developed a strife and warfare between the Clantons and the Earps, which resulted in, of course, the gunfight at the OK Corral. Isn't that true? And so fascinating tale in the development, in the West. I remember I was a part of an organization that had a working ranch in near Tulsa, Oklahoma, called Dry Gulch. And a minister started it. He actually was a children's minister. And he developed camps for kids, and there was a full working ranch there. His father had been a rodeo champion, and he loved anything to do with the West, with cowboys, with horses and cattle. And he would have, gatherings there, and we'd get to go, and I'd get to try my hand at horseback riding. Not stellar at it, but I gave it a shot. I'd love to do more of it. But one does need a horse for that, doesn't one? And so... But I loved going to Dry Gulch. And Willie George said he eventually had a church of 12,000 people. It still exists in Tulsa. But said if he had his way, if he didn't have a call on his life to minister, he'd love to just ride horses and punch cattle and do like his daddy did. But Yellowstone captures the cowboy romance and adventure, the battle between good and evil, cowboy and cowgirl life on the ranch. Frequently, with its particular and difficulties. The struggle of progress and tradition, it captures that. And one final thing that was, I thought, really beautiful was the Dutton family's relationship with the Lakota or Sioux people, and how their interactions, and he was on land that originally had been their land, and how all that progressed. It's very interesting. I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't seen the series, but something really cool happens in relation to the Lakota people when the series ends. Let me give you a little wisdom of cowboys. Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. And letting the cat out of the bag is a whole lot easier than putting it back in. And finally, if you're riding ahead of the herd, take a look back every now and then and make sure it's still there. But in this story of the Dutton family, Yellowstone, most applicable to me, what stands out to me, especially on this special day, is the father's role in the preservation of the home and the family. John Dutton being the patriarch, and his struggle and his desire to maintain the legacy his family, had for so long. And this really stood out to me because throughout human history, the father has been looked upon as kind of the anchor of the home. Isn't that true? And there's times, and my hat's off to single mothers who had to occupy the role of both father and mother. My hat's off to you. Yes. Because that's a very difficult thing to do. And the single mother becomes the anchor in the role of the father. And my hat's off, too, to fathers that occupy the role of father and mother in raising children and and being that anchor to the home and a nurturing element as well. My hat's off to you too. But this stood out to me, the father being the anchor of the home, and how the concept of finding a home is so much a part of our human experience, isn't it? We all want to find it, don't we? We all want to have it. We all want to find that special place that we can call home. And there are people today, they have to find their home in the street, wherever they can, where they can find a place to live. And that's very sad. And we must do more to remedy that problem. Because we're all searching for a home, aren't we? Every one of us. And we see that on the world stage, the struggles between Russia and Ukraine, between Israel and Palestine, now Iran. These are struggles over homeland. Who should have the right to call this their home? And we don't think these people should be able to call it home, so we'll take it from them, or we'll invade them. The struggles over homeland. And this is a major issue in the ancient scripture, beginning with Abraham, the great patriarch Abraham. In Genesis chapter 12, it says, "Now Yahweh said to Abram, leave your country and your relatives and your father's house and go to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you will be a blessing. Yahweh said, you must leave the country where you're at, and I'm going to direct you to your new home, to your new homeland. He was a wandering nomad at this time. He and all of his family were in tents, constantly roaming around. God said, I'm going to give you a home. No longer will you need to wander. And Abram became Abraham, which literally means a father of multitudes. This is brought out by Unity founder Charles Fillmore in a very beautiful way, what the significance of Abraham is to us. So Abraham represents the power of the mind to reproduce its ideas in unlimited expression. This ability of the mind to make substance out of ideas is called faith. When told by Yahweh he was henceforth to be Abraham, Abram was told he was to be the father of a multitude. The father of a multitude. At this time, he had no children at all. In fact, his wife could not even conceive. Yet God said, I will make you the father of multitudes. That required some faith, didn't it? This means that one is to express faith by bringing the faith of God into the multitude of our manifested thoughts and acts. The first step in spiritual development is the awakening of faith, represented by Abraham. We must have faith in the reality of the power of the invisible realm. Faith that we have that home. Faith that that home is ours. Because what is home? Home is where we're always welcome. Home is where we're always accepted. And home is where we're always loved. How many know there's a vast difference between a house and a home, isn't it? I heard of a man, very wealthy man. He built a house big enough where his kids would be able to live in it. He'd never have to see them. How many know that's not a home? That's just a big house. And then I've seen little bitty hovels where there's barely enough room, and yet there's so much love in there. That's a home. Home is where we're always welcome, where we're always accepted, where we're always loved. Home is a connection point, isn't it? And we all are crying out for that. And this promise of a home kept being repeated throughout the history of the Jewish people, the history of Israel. And yet it never seemed to manifest. We see that for centuries they were in bondage to the empire, the Egyptian empire, and were slaves in Egypt. And Yahweh said in Exodus 3, I've come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them up out of that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanite, Hittite, Amorite, Perizzite, Hivite, and Jebusite. Said a land of milk and honey. In other words, there were lots of cows, goats, and bees. Wonderful products of milk and honey. I personally am a milk fanatic. I consume it. I worship the cow. It's a glorious creature. And I can't get enough milk. I remember after Bible college, I lived with a minister and his family, kind of an internship. It didn't take him long. He said, I'd rather support a heroin addict than your milk habit. I love it. I can't get enough. Oh, I love milk. And there was lots of milk, lots of honey. It's flowing, it said. But there was also something else. There were several ites. Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And these all represented obstacles to the goodness of this land. You got good stuff here, but you're going to have to get through some obstacles. How many know that's how it always works? Any good thing I've ever obtained, there was some obstacle in the way I had to get to get it. Have you noticed that? And doesn't it make it so much sweeter? That honey tastes so much sweeter once you come to the obstacle. And that milk is so much more refreshing once you go through the obstacle to consume it. So there's obstacles, but there's also opportunity. Some people, all they see is the obstacles. But there are others that look past the obstacles and see the glorious opportunity. There's cold milk waiting for me if I plow through this sucker. And I will. And just like in Yellowstone, finding our home requires determination, doesn't it? I'm determined I'm going to partake of all the good things God has for me in spite of the obstacles. Back to the wisdom of cowboys. If you get to thinking you're a person of some influence, try ordering somebody else's dog around. After eating an entire bull, a mountain lion felt so good he started roaring. He kept it up till a hunter came along and shot him. The moral, when you're full of bull, keep your mouth shut. So by the time of Jesus, this dream of a homeland seemed to be gone, eradicated. The people, the land of Israel and its people had suffered a succession of conquests. First, the Babylonians took over. And then they were overthrown by the Persians. And then the Persians were overthrown by the Greeks. And finally, Rome took it all over. Their homeland was dominated by a pagan world power, and it seemed like they would never have it. And with this came other miseries. Extreme taxation was imposed upon them. Restrictions, oppressions. Not only did they not have their homeland, they were in a land dominated by strange people that oppressed them and made their lives so hard. And they began to cry out for somebody called Messiah. Messiah will come and straighten this out. He'll restore our land to us. Messiah, where are you? We need you. And suddenly there comes this guy named Jesus, an upstart young guy of 33. Comes on the scene, begins to teach about something called the kingdom of the heavens. We read Matthew 4:17. From that time, Jesus began to preach and say, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Oh, at last we're going to get our homeland back. Jesus is going to make it happen. And it didn't. They still didn't get their homeland back. The Romans weren't overthrown, and they finally said, away with this guy. Crucify him, he's of no use to us. But what they didn't understand is what Jesus was offering was not a geographical location, was it? It was a place in spirit. It was a place in consciousness, a place we can continually abide and find our home. This is what he came to bring, and still does. Let me read to you from John 14. This is a passage you hear a lot at funerals, but it actually has nothing to do with death. Let me read this to you. Jesus said, don't let your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many homes. If it weren't so, I would have told you. I am going to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. This has nothing to do with death or the afterlife. It has everything to do with the home now. Again, quoting from Mr. Fillmore, Unity founder Charles Fillmore, Father's house represents the Christ consciousness. It is the center of human consciousness and is made manifest to humanity by mind processes. You see, the home is a place in spirit, not in geography. And how many know that home's accessible wherever you are around the world? And it already belongs to every person. They just don't know it yet. We got to help people to know that. He said, where I am, there you may be too. Where I am, not where I will be, where I am presently. Where was he? His feet were planted on earth in the land of Palestine. But he was talking about a place where he was in spirit, a place in consciousness. This is a place where we can be too, you see. This is the glorious message he brought. Where I am, there you may be. We can all partake of this divine home that's already within us. The I am place in spirit, secured by divine love, leading us continually to a more abundant life. This is a home we all share. And it's really a journey more than a destination, isn't it? It's a place where I'm here, and I know I'm thankful for where I am, but I know there's so much more out there I can get. So much more for me. If I'm willing to overcome the obstacles, I'll partake of that sweetness and that goodness more and more. a journey more than a destination. Again, reading from Mr. Fillmore, there's also another sense in which we think of God as Father. Jesus would not have chosen the word Father to describe God had he wished simply to describe just a principle. There is a relationship with God into which we can enter where he seems closer than breathing and nearer than our hands and feet. When we enter into this relationship, we become acutely aware of God as a living presence, and we are lifted up by his love. In this consciousness, we're able to say, as Jesus did, Father, this principle and this presence. A beautiful thing, isn't it? And in the spirit of the Father, our spiritual community will always be home, or we hope it'll always be home to you. If you've already selected as your home, we are so thankful. And if you're looking for a home, give us a shot. See if because I speak for everyone here, we all want this to be a home for those that are seeking, don't we? We always want people to find their sense of connection here and a community that will love and care about them. This is our heart's desire. Because Psalm 68:6 says, God sets the lonely in families. I got a real soft spot for lonely people. And I hope if you're lonely today, give us a chance. We'd love to be a community for you. Because how many know, in its ultimate sense, the church is not an institution. That's triggering to some people and understandable. There are people whose lives have been wrecked by the institution of the church. But the church is not an institution. It is a family. It is a community, isn't it? A place of connection together. That's what it is. And that's what we want to be. Back to the Cowboys. Never kick a cow chip on a hot day. If you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. And never slap a man who's chewing tobacco. The adventure of the Old West can yet be with us. This is a glorious adventure of spiritual exploration, isn't it? There was a song that came out years ago by Stephen Curtis Chapman. Saddle up your horses. We got a trail to blaze through the wild blue yonder of God's amazing grace. Let's follow our leader into the glorious unknown. This is life like no other. This is the great adventure. And so it is. Stand with me, if you would. Let's make our affirmation in closing. Repeat after me if you'd be so kind. Howdy, partners.
Howdy, partners.
Here I am welcome.
Here I am welcome.
Here I am accepted.
Here I am accepted.
Here I am loved.
Here I am loved.
I am at home in the I am.
I am at home in the I am.
Yeah, you are. You can have your seats. Thank you so much.